All right, GitOps, right? What do you say?
Yeah, good afternoon, GitOpsians. God,
There
get
you
it
go.
right.
Yes, yeah. Well, I need to get it right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so we're back. And before I let Christian deep dive into what's new in the latest are the upcoming Argo release? I don't even remember what we're doing.
It's up and coming. Yeah, up and coming.
Up and coming.
Preview, yes.
Before I let me get that, we had a couple of things we wanted to discuss. I think you wanted to start off with the CFPs for ArgoCon, right?
Yeah. So for two things, right? So for the CFPs for ArgoCon, which is going to be in Europe, is closing soon-ish, right? February 10th. I'll throw some of these in the chat for you guys to see. So the CFP for ArgoCon, this is going to be co-located with KubeCon, Cloud Native Con in Amsterdam. So if you're in Europe, or even if you're not in Europe, you're planning on going to KubeCon, hopefully you can, if you're a GitOpsian, right? We would love to have you at ArgoCon. Hillary and I, we submitted CFPs, so we'll hopefully we'll get accepted and we'll be there. So that's closing soon, right? And also what's near and dear to my heart, CFPs for put that in the chat there, for GitOpsCon. So GitOpsCon North America. So I'm gonna have to be very crisp and clear on this. GitOpsCon North America is happening at Open Source Summit. I think I said that before, but Open Source Summit, which is in Vancouver, which is actually pretty cool. I haven't been to Canada in a while. Those CFPs are open. Those close, I think, on the 10th as well. So similar dates. So get those for everyone in North America, or if you're planning to go to Open Source Summit in North America, we're doing a GitOpsCon / CDCon from the CD Foundation, right? So they kind of grouped us together. But it's going to be a multiple day, 2-day, multi-track. I believe we're going to have like 5 separate tracks, 2 days. It's going to get those CFPs in, right? So like we're going to have 2 days, 5 rooms. There's going to be a good chance that your CFP will be chosen, right? We're working, and by we, I mean the GitOpsCon planning committee, which I'm a part of. We're working with the CDCon planning committee. So even though it's separate at the same event, we're actually trying to make it to where it's one big happy family, right? Because CI/CD and GitOps, it's all related. So that'll be cool. So those are closing soon. Get those CFPs in. Yeah, I think you had one.
Yeah.
Announcement there.
I mean, well, it's tangentially related. Speaking of the CD Foundation, there was a product release today, or 2 days ago. Excuse me. I saw the email today, but it was from 2 days ago on OpenShift pipelines, which released version 1.9, which is Tecton for OpenShift, right? And one of the things, in addition to the features and all the other change logs about the release, the other thing that they mentioned was Tecton has graduated from the CD Foundation, which makes them the second project to graduate from the CD Foundation after Jenkins. So more on that in the blog post that I shared there, because it's not mine and I shouldn't take credit for the language.
Yeah.
As I literally was just reading word for word from it for you. So credit where credit's due. But yeah, so take a look at that blog, learn more about that whole process, as it talks a little bit. It links back to a statement from the CD Foundation there. And then of course it actually goes deeper into what's going on with Tecton in 1.9. And maybe we should actually do a different episode where we talk about Tecton features or a release, down the line.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it'll get it's all related, right? Like, so like this is the guide to the galaxy, right? So it's not just GitOps stuff, but like stuff that related, because it's just not, GitOps is just not like one thing, right? It's a one thing part of a bigger thing. So for sure, get the Tecton folks on.
as we've definitely talked about it before, right? Git as the source of truth. It stands to, X as code, star as code, everything is code.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, a lot of what the execution of that comes down to pipelines 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I like Tecton and pipeline technology. Always have. Anyway, but I also like CD technology, and I also like Argo. Great shirt, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. I love this shirt, by the way. It's this is the shirt that the Acuity guys gave me. So
Oh
great
yeah.
shirt. I love the shirt.
Are we having them on the stream in a few weeks? Like, you should have saved the shirt.
I should have saved the shirt. Well, I have a few of these because they have them in different colors.
Okay.
I'm gonna wear the red one in the next one. But yeah, they're so kind of like a sneak peek. We're going to have the Acuity guys come on the next stream. Specifically, Nick, who is the dev advocate there. I asked Daniel. Well, I indirectly asked Daniel to come, and I was told indirectly that he wasn't going to come on. So I'm going to shame you, Daniel, on the stream live. So I'll probably get a message from him soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you said Acute, I was like, oh, cool, we're gonna have Daniel, and you're like, no, and I was like,
Oh,
who else do we know besides Daniel?
yeah. What else do we know? Daniel. So yeah. So the Nicholas or Nick. I don't know what he actually goes by. I just always call him Nick. He hasn't corrected me, but he's gonna come on. So that's kind of like where I wear the shirt. The little sneak preview.
Great. Well, I think that was it for the announcements.
Yeah. So wait, I'm trying to think if there's any. Well, if it comes along, we'll just do it live, right? We'll just
yeah, because I have our Slack message up, and the only thing we talked about besides those three things was the fact that I jinxed it. My husband finally got sick.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah. So he finally got the Mr. Good white blood cells. Finally got sick.
Yeah. So after all of my mentioning that his immune system is Herculean, and he didn't get COVID from me, and he didn't get the flu from me. He picked up COVID at fencing class. Him and a few others came down with it who'd never had it before. And now he's had COVID, and I was like, oh, I jinxed it. Literally the same week.
Well, if you had fencing class, you should have said touche. You got.
He should have said on guard, and then that would have immune system up, viruses out, right? Like, that's how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, there you go. There's so many puns.
But he's fine. He's doing well. He was a little grumpy about being sick because he never gets sick. So he's like, oh, this is terrible. It's like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I'm sleeping on the sofa.
Yeah. Don't get me sick.
Even 5 days.
Yeah. Feel better.
Yeah, feel better, right? Exactly. So we haven't seen him. He's staying away from everybody, but he's doing well. He's doing fine. My kids and I are still testing negative, so I'm not super concerned. But yeah, I was cracking up that I literally jinxed it. I had talked and bragged about his immune system, and it was like, watch this.
Yeah, for sure. So there you go, jinx.
Jinx, exactly.
Okay, sweet. So today's topic, right? You mentioned, and we kind of mentioned it earlier. Our Argo CD release candidate came out, right? So for 2.6, there's a lot in this release. A lot of cool things that have been kind of like brewing for a very long time. Some of them were I was following because I submitted an RFE for them specifically. So I was like, all right, sweet. And it's a lot of cool things coming down the pipe. So I figured, hey, let's preview some of these because they eventually make their way down to OpenShift GitOps, right? So for those who are watching who don't know, OpenShift GitOps is basically Red Hat's supported version of Argo, and it just essentially tracks maybe 3 months behind the upstream's release. So kind of like normal things at Red Hat, we vet certain things before we put them out. So this is the Argo CD 2.6 release candidate, and there are a few features, right? I'm gonna kind of go over them, kind of like the biggest features, and I'm gonna demo some of them. only because I just didn't have time to mess with the other ones. So I'll talk about a few of them, and I'll demo a few of them there as well. And yeah,
you sort of indirectly answered this. So one of the questions in the chat was, is there any new features for Argo CD in 4.12, which I'm assuming that is OpenShift 4.12?
Yeah.
And the answer is what's coming out, what we're showing here are things that will percolate down into OpenShift GitOps,
Yeah.
which will start to become available. I don't know the exact cadence, in a few weeks, really.
Yeah, exactly. So as soon as like, you know, the GA releases drop of Argo CD, and then, you know, a few weeks down the line, I always say 3 months. Sometimes it's like a few weeks. Sometimes it's 6 months. It just depends. I always say 3 months because like we do, you know, track behind a little bit. So let me actually
makes sense to track behind a little bit, I think, most of the time. So
yeah, it does make sense because it's like, you know, you want something that's vetted. Where
exactly. So hopefully that answers that question satisfactorily.
Let's see here. Let's share this. All right. Can you see my screen? I don't like
yes.
this. Let's do that. Yeah. Okay. Let me
A
make
little
it a little bigger.
blurry. Can you make it
How's that?
better? Why is it's still kind of blurry?
Is it blurry to everyone else?
I don't know.
Drop in the chat if it's blurry or not. Or maybe hold on. Let me stop. And then reshare. Maybe it's the screen because sometimes that happens to me. So let's do this.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat that it is blurry for folks beyond myself. I'm not I am not alone.
You are not alone. So how about this? Better? Same? Worse?
Yeah, it's pixelated. I don't know how to describe this. It's like I can see strategy should be open, but it's like 30% of where there should be blue pixels is white.
Yeah, no, I actually see it too from the interesting. Making it bigger.
Oh, wait,
maybe
for a hot second. There we go. Mobile view works.
Fine. That's 300%. Just let me know when it starts getting worse. I feel like I'm at the eye doctors.
I know, right?
Eye doctors, right? Yeah, it's like same, worse.
This is fine. It's not perfect, but we can read it clearly.
Yeah, it's like you know, same, worse. So for the
CLI,
that's
terrible.
That looks terrible. Yeah, hold on, let me see.
That looks absolutely terrible. There, wait, you can go a little smaller, a couple. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Perfect.
All right. So then I need to figure that out for next stream.
Probably did you get a new monitor? What's your resolution?
Yeah, resolutions for that monitor. Good question. Let's take a look. I have like 3 monitors, so maybe let me see here.
See, that's a mistake. I have the one ginormous monitor.
Yeah, 1920 by 1080. That's like normal.
Oh, yeah, that shouldn't do that. That's weird.
Yeah, this is a new machine, so maybe it's just something, I don't know. I need to figure it out.
Okay, we'll play with that. We'll fix it in post. We're not going to.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post. That's right. Yeah, exactly. We'll
There's
do
no
post.
Live,
right? There's no post. All right. So then, all right. So the first, let me make this bigger again. I don't know where we were. There we go. And I'll actually drop this in the chat here. The first feature to come out is a parameterized config management plugin. Now I'm going to start with this because it's not something I 100% understand, only because I haven't really used it. But just a high level of config management plugin, you can add your own either pre, post, or actually make it a main part of your how the YAML is rendered, right? So like, let's say you have like a customized build, like customized JSON it, right? Is that kind of like how you parameterize Helm is like another one. Like if you write your own, like my fancy, you know, plugin, you can do things with the repo controller, right? That downloads the git, does a git clone your source of truth, and then you can like do things with it, right? With these plugins. So these plugins, the feature that is going to happen with these is that before, like, parameters to your custom, I guess, I don't know how to explain this. Kind of like your render agent, or kind of like customize, right? Like customize has like command line options. Like, what if I have like my own, my fancy CLI, right? Like it has parameters you can pass to it. Before, the only way to pass parameters to it was via environment variables, and there was no way to discover what those environment variables were. Like you basically had to like ask your like if you're a developer, you had to ask your administrator, like, well, what parameters are available to me in order to render my YAML, for example. So this gives it a way to, um, I guess, what do you call it? Auto detect or auto uh, advertise. What do they call it? Advertise some of these parameters. You're saying that there's a good example. Yeah, here. So it says, hey, there's a parameter called ignore Helm charts, and it's an array, right? So like basically ignore Helm charts. If you're going to pass this to me, you're going to have to pass it as an array. So I don't have to guess, like, what do I pass this this parameter? Like I don't have to guess what, like, it just, I say, oh, it's an array. Like I need to pass it an array. Things like that, right? And so there's also another more good examples here about.
I was gonna say, I'm reading the docs as you're kind of going through this, and it looks like there's a few ways of implementing this as well. So you could do it as a sidecar or a configuration file or a config map. Yep. And I'm sure they each have their own advantages and disadvantages that I don't know because I also haven't looked at this feature at all.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of pick your poison, right, on that one.
Yeah, pick your poison. And if anyone maybe later on tag me on if you try it out, tag me on Twitter, right? So you'll see my Twitter handle there about you trying it out, sidecar or config map. You tell me what you prefer. I haven't played around with this. There's a way to say, I saw a good example on this document. I just can't seem to find it right now. But yeah, so for here, like for example, it says parameters that you can pass, version, right? And it's a string, right? So like if you pass it a version, you have to give it a string, that sort of thing. You can do things like post render, and like it'll bubble up in the here we go. It'll bubble up in the UI as well, so you don't have to like guess what parameters you can pass this custom, I guess, render agent. I don't know exactly what to call it. So yeah, so this is kind of like one of the things that are coming. I think it was like a big thing that everyone was asking for. I tend not to use plugins only because like I'd rather, because if you use plugins, then I'm responsible for the plugin versus like something like if something breaks, I'm responsible for it. Which is fine, right? If you're running an organization, if you have engineers and blah blah blah, but like I don't want to like be beholden on someone else's plugin, right? And so this is kind of what some of the things, and also sidecars aren't really battle tested, right? So this is kind of like a chicken egg thing, right? Where it's like, well, I don't want to use something that's not battle tested, but then it never gets battle tested because you don't use it. So anyway, kind of like is kind of like Hillary said, pick your poison there. This next one, shout out to my my former colleagues at CodeFresh. This is one of the ones that they pioneered, right? I'm not sure if it's 100% them, but this is something they wanted, right? So in when you create an application, let me make this a little smaller, and I'm sorry if that makes it worse. I'm trying to get it all here. Okay.
I'm actually going to put in the chat for those who may not. Maybe everybody knows, and this is for nobody, but for anybody who's not super familiar with the sidecar model, this is a article I just found via a quick. I actually use Ecosia as my search engine, so a quick Ecosia search for a good explanation on Kubernetes sidecars, and so that's just in the chat. Might help you pick your poison.
Yeah. So the application. So the application, there used to be a sync. There still is. There's an option called create namespace, mainly for Helm users. But I do it even when using custom, because 99% of the time I use customize. I do create namespace.
Related question from Tal, who is a colleague of ours here at Red Hat.
Now can I have an essay? I'm getting to that actually. So yes, but I'm gonna put a pin to that. Pump the brakes on that a little bit. It's gonna be pretty cool. And so so this is when you do create a namespace with customize, or I do it with customize or whatever. It creates the namespace that you put in the sync policy. This is actually a really, really bad example, because it says create space equals true, and then you're like, oh, do you mean the namespace that is no, actually it has nothing to do with this namespace. There's another there's a destination under spec that you put in the destination namespace, and that's what this refers to, right? So if that namespace doesn't exist, it will create it. But also, as a side effect, you can also add labels to those namespaces, right? So you can say, when you create this namespace, please add these labels and add these annotations for whatever reason, right? Things like you can add Argo CD specific annotations to it. You can add annotations needed for other workloads or whatever. But anyways, this is kind of like as a side effect, right? Create the namespace if it doesn't exist, and as a side effect, make sure these labels and annotations are applied. That's pretty cool. I used to, especially I use the create namespace a lot, because I don't necessarily want to manage that in Git, because my application can go not only to many clusters, not only to many environments, but also many namespaces, right? Like, I'm not just beholden to one namespace. So that's why I do it. Pick your poison, good or bad. But that's kind of like another way of doing it. Another option that's coming is that you can label your namespaces when you create them. So that's kind of cool here. Copy this. So another one, and then I'll actually get to demoing some of this, is that you can now use Google Cloud Source, right? So Google Cloud Source is kind of like their Git managed Git service, right? Or whatever. I actually haven't used Google Cloud Source, so if anyone on chat knows about it, feel free to drop it in the chat. But now you can actually specify the Google account key, right? And like the source repository. Here's an example that I give here. Actually, I'll put that in the chat as well. But you can add that as a source repo, right? So you don't have to. So now you can actually use this, right? You weren't able to use this before, but now you will in 2.6. So I will throw that in the chat as well. So that is cool.
I've also never used Google Cloud Source. I don't. If I know people who have, I don't know that I know people who have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So so cool. So that is another thing. So for those of you using Google Cloud Source, that is one thing. All right, cool. So then those are kind of the things that I know about but haven't really played with. So if anyone plays with it, let me know. So here's the one that Tal is asking about. So this is one actually multiple sources for an application. So this is one that actually, so kind of a shout out to to our engineering, right? This is something that came from Red Hat engineering, right? Red Hat engineering wrote this, and essentially, so what happens is that before you can only specify one source, right? So you can say source Helm chart, source Git repo, but you can never. It was one, right? You can never either. You can have one or the other, but not both. But now sources, notice the S, sources allows you to specify multiple sources, right? So you can have something like a Helm chart and a customized repo be part of one application. So this is, and this is something I played with. Oh, actually, let me start the cluster first before before anything else. But that is something that'll take a few seconds. But so that is something that you can do now in 2.6. You can specify two sources, and then there we go. So let's install the release candidate. So for the release candidate, it's here. So for those who want to follow along, you can. So let's install Argo. Very copy pasta here. That's one. And then let's get pods. Watch that for a while. Cool. And then, yeah, that's up and running. Let's open another tab. Let's port forward. Port. Nope. It was not in my. Damn. Okay, so this K in Argo CD, port forward, SVC, called server, I guess, and then we'll do
the one magnification. You're blurry again. It looks like it's smaller than it was last time I told you it was fine.
Oh yeah, because I dropped into another. I just want to get this port forward going. Server, is it 8080? No, it's 80. Okay, and then 80 to 8080. Well, 80 to 80. I always forget. Like, is it port host or host port?
Oh, I know.
It's okay. So then I can do. Let me make this bigger. Wow, this is really pixelated. I had to figure that out. I don't know what that's all about. For what it's worth, it looks amazing on my screen.
on your monitor, yeah.
Yeah, on my monitor. So actually, and I don't know the password. So let's do. Let's go. Okay, get secret. Initial admin secret. -o-yaml. This guy here. Have a script. Password here. Where is this guy? No, that's you. That's your face. Okay.
That's my face.
I'm like, yes, no. That's not what we're looking for. Okay.
That's not what we're looking for. It's your face, but not what we need right now.
All right. So I have a release. Yeah, not what we. Yeah, it's fine, but it's just not what we need right now. Yeah. So let's yeah, my example. Let me see here. What did I call this? Multi-source. There we go. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. So in this example, right, I have note it's sources and not source. There's going to be a lot of people making that mistake. So I'm just going to say it over and over again. They're going to be like, I tried it and it didn't work. I'm like, is it plural? So
yes,
so
I was actually going to ask that question, which is on the pluralization. I assume pluralization is required for you to have two, but will it break the opposite way? If you say sources and you only have one, are we breaking? Is it sources forever now?
It's source. If you have one, it'll work because it's an array. But if you have a source, it'll break if you have like source and you have multiple. If multiple, it won't work. And also, if you use source and sources takes over, right? It'll just ignore the source field, right? So just kind of here. So I have so I have here. This is a, what do you call it? A customized, right? Just straight YAML repo. So that's one, right? One source in my sources. My second source in my sources. I'm going to develop a Lisp after this. I have I have a Helm chart, right? So I have a Helm chart, which I'm just installing MySQL, right? And I give it, whatever op parameters it has here. And then finally, I have another repo of just YAML, right? So I have one application, but I have three components, I guess, for that application. I have three sources, one for each, I guess, stack, right? And then, So then if I do k apply -f, I go back. So this is kind of like blue screen of death. You're gonna not since it's a release candidate, not everything 100% works. So what do I say? Unfortunately or fortunately, it'll say missing. Like you won't see the normal, Argo, like one thing come up at a time, or you won't see things syncing. It'll say missing and out of sync for the whole duration until it all is synced. This is something that is known upstream, right? I talked to a few of the engineers. Michael Crenshaw, by the way, shout out from Intuit. He says this is a known thing, and it's kind of it's going to be buggy for a while until maybe a 2.6.x release, right? It's going to be a so this is here, and if I go here, I do get apps, right? There's one app, price lit, right? I have my my database is coming up, so that's good. And then that should, okay, cool. It started creating a lot of things. And I always just kind of like hard force it while that's coming up. Yeah, see, so then now my front end is coming up. And after that, it should be, yeah, there we go. It should be running. I have a batch process. Okay. Finished. Oh, my hook. Yeah. Look at how big my app was. Okay.
Yeah, seriously. Like, this was what you wanted?
Yeah, I was like, wow, there's a lot of watching paint dry here. Yeah, so there we go. Sync okay. So it should be running. There's going to be, like I said, bugs, right?
I hope everybody knows what this is all supposed to say, because it's
yeah. So if
this could be used on the screen in a movie when they want it to look like something interesting is happening on the computer, but they don't want to like actually put work into making what's happening on the computer look realistic, where it's just slightly out of focus. So there's a lot of stuff, but you don't know what it means and you can't see. That's like that's our view of your screen right now.
So hold on. At some point, so now it turned all green, and if you didn't see, I actually had to hard refresh it for it to actually see it. So that's kind of how that's kind of how this is. This is actually really cool. This is actually something that I know I've got pinged on a lot. It's like, oh hey, can you put multiple sources? And my trying to be nice to myself. My tongue-in-cheek answer is like, well, why would you want to do that? it's like my answer was always, you're doing it wrong. So now now you're not doing it wrong. Now that's possible, and that is the power of open source. If enough people scream, it'll get done. So this is that's something that came out. So then we delete that.
So actually, this is so interesting, right? This is I'm thinking back to, you know, hashtag old job, right? Could you imagine having all of that like code coming from multiple places?
Oh, it would. I think it would have been a nightmare to maintain, right?
Yeah. But I mean, with, I guess, you know, modern problems require modern solutions, right?
Solutions, like, yes, exactly, yeah.
Now though, it kind of actually, like, I do see it. It makes sense. It still feels kind of weird.
Yeah.
And I'm still not sure I love it, but I get it.
I 100% agree with you. I get it. Like, I get it. Personally, I wouldn't do it for many reasons, because one being is that, like, usually, like, you call it an application, but your application is actually made up of smaller applications. Even in a monolithic world, that's true. I'm not talking about microservices. Just like from monolithic to microservices, this is true. Your application, what people see as your application, the end users, they see it as one thing, but the backend is made up of many things. It's made up of,
there's always been, you know, this, they called it the lamp stack back in the day, right? Linux,
exactly.
Apache, MySQL, and at the time it was PHP, right?
Yeah.
And so all of those things made up what the consumer consumed. Yep. But yeah, you have the stack. So
yeah, they call it the stack, right? It's the stack that runs your app, and that's true even in monoliths, right? Because you know, back $ last job, right? Like, where we worked together, you know, we technically ran a monolith, but it was made up of so many moving pieces, right?
Yep.
And trying to manage that in one, like in Argo, in one thing, for me, just personally, that would be hard. I understand why you would want to do it, and you know what? If that works for you, cool. I just wouldn't personally do it. Yeah. I don't love it. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't love it. Yeah. I mean,
I would love to hear from people who do like it. Like, who are you folks who wanted this feature? Tell us more about your life.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, change my mind, right? I'm sitting there. Yeah, change my mind. No, 1,000%.
100. Yeah. If I'm wrong, or if I'm not seeing the business case or the value or whatever, show me the way, right? I'm but a flawed human with a limited experience set. And that experience set informs my views. And there are way more things out there beyond that. But so yeah, this is an interesting feature. It's one I've heard asked for. We'll see. I'm curious to see how this goes, and how we see. I know there are things being built with Argo CD here at Red Hat that I will probably see the potential impacts on this on, and that'll be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And I know exactly what you're talking about. And you know, well, and again, like I always say, I'm opinionated, but I'm not so opinionated that you can't change my mind, right? Like, I'm opinionated, but if you change like, I'm open for you to change my mind. Sweet.
I love being wrong. I
love being wrong. I absolutely love being wrong. Yeah.
That means I learned something.
Absolutely. I'm with you there. And this is also, this is one, the next one, it's on the same doc. Just scroll down a little bit. This is one I actually like. This one and the next one I really like a lot, and I can see a lot of value. So so before time, or right now, you if you're deploying a Helm chart, your values file has to be in the same repo as your Helm chart. So so if you have one Helm chart, the values file has to be in that same repo, which means that if you have different like deployments and stuff like that, like you're gonna have multiple values files, right? You'd have to say, this is values dash prod, values dash this, value that, you know, like you're gonna have to have multiple ones.
And potentially multiple places, and all that uncomfortable amount of room for human error I always mention I don't like.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and also if it's under one repo, like like I have to make a change, and like it essentially alerts everyone, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
no, it's only for like my team. I'm sorry, like I don't need approval for like 800 people just to make this one little change. Like it's annoying. I get it. um so this update in 2.6 is coming. You can have um your repo, your Helm chart in one repo, and your values file in another repo. Hallelujah, everyone rejoices. I really, really like this as well, because I'm mainly a consumer of Helm charts. I think maybe I wrote maybe like a handful of Helm charts. Just
Mostly because I
because,
made you.
yeah, exactly. But mostly because I need to. Like if I can't, mostly because I couldn't find what I needed.
Yeah.
Um, so this is really cool for me. Like, okay, cool. I can consume. I use Bitnami a lot, so Red Hatters don't hate me. I'm sorry, because they're owned by VMware. I use Bitnami's Helm charts a lot just because I know they work, and so I didn't hate. It was kind of annoying writing umbrella charts just to have, for different, have like 5 umbrella charts for each for my different deployments. Well, now I could just point to them directly, and then my repo has the values file. So here, the way it works is that you have, you kind of do same things you would. First, you need the resources, not resource. So you have to use sources, and then second, this stuff is just normal Helm chart Argo CD stuff, right? That you do normally. But then you see this weird dollar value, right? So this keyword here, it doesn't have to be values, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to use it just because that's the example. Refers to this, right? So you're saying, for the values file, look at values, right? Which is this repo, right? Because that's your reference. And in this repo, which is down here, follow this path, right? So it's kind of, and then I have an example of that here. Let's VI again. External, right? So this is Cork's Helm chart. So shout out to Andy Block. He wrote this Helm chart, so I don't have to. And this is just a Cork's Helm chart, right? Kind of sample Hello World app. And it's a Helm chart, so it takes Helm values. So I have, but the values file, I'm storing it in my repo, right? So you notice the 2 different repos, and then the values, kind of like how I did that, and then this path is relative to my repo here. So let's do this. Do it live. Right, same thing, and kind of like, I guess, similar idea. It might not. It'll show missing out of sync, even if it's syncing, even if it's going fine because of reasons. Can I move this?
They must be race conditions. They're probably not race conditions, but they must be race conditions. I always blame a race condition. It's
always, yeah. Well, in the UI, and also since the UI is kind of behind some of these features, it's like it's a race condition until the very end. It's like,
yeah.
It's kind of like the early times of the internet when you're downloading something. It says like 1%, done, and then all of a sudden it goes to 100. Like you don't get the progress bar. You just get 0, or you get 1% and then 100%.
Yeah. Or it would go like from 1% to like 90% and then stay there for 10 minutes. It's like you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And so then now, I have my the application's up and running. All things are cool. So this is actually cool, and this is actually what I like a lot. At one of the things here, and so yeah. So then it's like, this is a good question here. Yeah, so like if you have an application that needs a database and RabbitMQ, right? Like this is actually the multiple sources, right? That I think if they're like related, I think maybe that's like a good way of deploying them together, right? Like if you have like a database with like a caching, that makes total sense to deploy those together, manage those together. Like that makes I think that's like a good use case for
Yeah, that's a very good
multiple
use case.
sources. That's the Helm value thing. So that's actually pretty cool. One of my favorite things to come out. This one, I saved the crescendo, right? Save the best for last.
Oh yeah, didn't we look at progressive rollouts a little bit?
So yeah, so this is there's the only thing I don't dislike about this is that they called it progressive rollouts. You should really call it progressive syncs, because progressive rollouts, in my mind, it's talking about like canary, blue, green, whatever, right? So progressive rollouts, yeah, we talked about it when we talked about Argo rollouts. I'm gonna call this, even though the feature is called progressive rollouts, I'm gonna call it progressive syncing. So with this is for application sets, right? So with if you haven't seen the episode before, there's an episode of sync waves, right? There's a episode of sync waves where you order the way you deploy your manifest. So like you can say, hey, deploy the namespace first. When that's healthy, then deploy the service, and when that's healthy, then deploy the deployment, and when that's healthy, then deploy the ingress, right? Like you have, you do it in steps, right? And I was asking, and I'm pretty sure I wasn't the only one, because the person who wrote this was from Indeed, right? From the company Indeed, actually contributed. So shout out to Indeed and those engineering guys. They did a great job. They said, well, a lot of people, and myself included, I have an RFE saying, I want to be able to do sync waves with application sets. And sync waves with application sets wasn't possible. The only way to do that was to do something called app of apps, right? You create an Argo CD app that is made of other Argo CD apps, and then you can do sync waves there. But I'm like, but I really, really, really like application sets. I was a big fan of application sets, still am. And they have a progressive rollout. So the progressive rollout essentially is you do your application sets the same as you would, like this is a list generator, right? So you do that, but then there's this new under spec, there's this new option called strategy, right? Right now there's only one strategy. With the idea is that more people are going to come up with more ways to do things. So we're going to do a rolling sync, right? Which is kind of what I called in the beginning. And then you kind of like Tecton, right? You kind of just give it steps, right? So you're saying step one, deploy an application that is labeled environment dev, right? And then step two, when that's healthy, deploy the next application that that is labeled environment QA, and then the next step, right? So you kind of just like you're saying deploy, and it's based on label, right? And the label is this stuff here, right? So I do want to talk about max update, right? I know what it is. I haven't used it. So for those who are using, who are testing it, using it, let me know how you would use it. So max update. So this, since it's based on label, you can actually deploy like one application or 1,000, right? Because it's just based on label. If you label your application and it matches the label, it'll try to deploy it. So they have max update, meaning like here it says set to 100, but here is like 10%, right? So if you have like 1,000 and you set it to 10%, only deploy it like 100 at a time, right? So they can only deploy 100, and once those are done, it'll deploy the next 100, and vice versa. 100% meaning just whatever matches, deploy it. 0% means don't deploy it unless I click on sync, right? You click on sync in the UI. You have this the sync button right here in the UI. So that's what 0 means. Don't deploy anything until I tell you to. So that's the max update. The way I would use it, I mean, I haven't really used it a lot, but the way I would use it is like if I had like a massive, like I don't want like this, broadcast, like my networking background, like you have broadcast storm, right? Like you don't want like everything, because it'll just grind to a halt, right? Like, because it's like, no, deploy it, I would probably do it like 10% or maybe 25% of the time. Do it. I haven't ran massive infrastructure before, but big enough to where I would do like maybe 15%, right, 20% at a time. And my example, let's take a look at my example. Oops.
On kind of like this, there's something Microsoft put out an article on safe deployment practices. And one of the things that they call it, what do they call it? They call it rings, I think. I literally just had ring-based deployment. I'm going to link that.
Yeah, link that.
We are using this actually as the basis for how we're going to be implementing a similar practice in one of the Red Hat services. And that was an extremely exciting architectural discussion.
Yeah.
So shout out to
I would have nerded out so hard on that with you. I'm like, oh yes.
So we saw I saw the architectural proposal for that, and it linked back to this source, and I was like, I love that you linked your source. That's good. That's like really helps to give the context and understanding to what was being proposed. We did accept it. That's real exciting. So this is going to be a pretty significant piece of
that is really cool.
Of infra is going to be using this in the future.
Slack that to me because I want to have it.
Like that to me. Yeah. I'll let you know. Yeah, but so it's just they're working on the implementation. I'm super excited to see how that comes out. Not being built with Argo, but again, really similar.
Yeah, no, that's really that's similar ideas in the same vein, right? Because we're all we use GitOps to deploy, but like this is all related because that's actually really cool. How to deploy an application, especially at scale, it could get tricky.
Can get real tricky. Yeah.
Fun times. So awesome. That's a good read. So so here I have same application set, right? So I use the list generator because it's like the more straightforward example. I have again here elements. I have there it did it in environments. Here I'm doing it as an application stack, right? So I have like a configuration app, and then I'm gonna have an app that's for my database, and I have my app for my front end application. And so here I'm gonna say match expressions right here. The key. So this is kind of like where I got confused. I thought the key was like something up here. It has nothing to do with up there. So the key is priceless component, and that goes down here to what you're labeling your application itself specifically, right? So I say when you see priceless component equals config, which then it'll be up here. Deploy that first, right? That's my first step. And then the second step, priceless component values in DB. Deploy that next, right? And priceless component front end, then deploy that last. I commented out max update because I'm only deploying it to one cluster, so it doesn't matter. 10% of one is, I don't know if it's going to do a fraction of it. I don't know. I think it rounds up. So I read the doc. It actually rounds it up or down depending on like, it won't get crazy, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say there must be some math in there, otherwise no one is going to be doing that math by hand for these, so it has to do something.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and floating point math is hard in computers, by the way. It's stressful, and so which is why NVIDIA has a big presence in out there. So floating point math. So a few caveats. Yeah, few caveats. One. What's that?
I have friends in accounting, and early accounting software in decimals was not a fun time.
No, it's not. No, floating point math back in the day, yeah, for sure. So caveat is that if you like me, and I left this in here just to make the point, if you have a sync policy of automated, if you have a sync policy of automated, right? So automated sync policy, self-heal, all that stuff, and you're using rolling sync, it'll be ignored, meaning that the application set will take away auto sync from the from the application, and that is because the application set is responsible to do the syncing now, not your application. So you kind of have to. For me, that was kind of like a paradigm shift. I'm like, oh, okay, the application that gets generated no longer is governed. No longer governs itself, right? Is the application set that governs it. So I left it in there because so that way you can see what gets generated. But first, so by the way, this is going to be an alpha feature when it goes GA. So it's actually going to go GA, but it still won't be GA. It'll just be there for you to use and test. So in order to do this, you have to edit Argo CD, and then I have to edit the deployment of Argo CD application set controller. And then I have to add, I believe, in my notes here. Yeah, progressive rollouts. Delete this guy here. Say value equals, So you set to true, or you can do it in the config map. I'll let you. Oh, it didn't like it. Oh, string? What? I think. Let's go. Value true. That's so lame. Okay. I know why, but that's still lame. Okay. Key get pods. Argo CD. I should probably roll that out. Delete that. Let that. Should be there. Roll out true. Okay, cool. All right. So then now I can apply my this in the chat. I don't know if I put it in the chat, but let me do it. Anyway, actually, I'm gonna make this smaller, and I'm sorry that you guys are gonna get pixelated, but I think it shows. There we go. Want to do that? Okay. To sleep 2, so I can do k apply, and then okay. So then this will create an application, right? So first, it creates them all at once, and then it says out of sync, and then it'll first deploy the configuration, right? Because that was first on my list, and then it'll deploy. Configuration. Yeah, configuration. That's on my list, and then it'll deploy the database, which is deploying now. Once that's healthy, then it'll deploy the front end, right? So it'll kind of just like it'll do it, 1, 2, 3 that way. And so one thing I do want to show.
Just letting you know, I don't have a super hard stop, but we're coming up on the top of the hour.
Yes. Yeah. So then one here, it created 3 of them, and then I kind of wanted to show the fact that that the sync. Actually, a better way to do this is to do. I do export. Yeah. So sync policy. Notice how the automated sync policy was removed, meaning that Argo CD will the application set removes that, and the application set that becomes the controller, right, or the overarching. It now takes responsibility of the syncing, which makes sense, right? If the application set creates applications, and you need it to sync in a certain order, the logic needs to be higher up.
Yeah.
So so that's kind of like you have to keep that in mind when using this feature. So, which is one of my favorite features of Argo that's coming out in 2.6. So So yeah, there we go. That is, we actually did it in the hour.
Yeah, we did. We did.
That is a preview of 1.6. If you guys want to read more about it, William Tam is an engineer here at Red Hat, wrote a blog about it with all the information and links to stuff like that. I dropped that in the chat that you guys can read up on it some more. And yeah, that's it. I need to figure out that pixelated thing. I had no idea what's going on there. I have an NVIDIA card. Speaking of NVIDIA, so it shouldn't be an issue. Maybe it's Chrome. I have Chrome. I'm using Chrome. Maybe next time I'll use another.
I mean,
for the browser.
Chrome is recommended for but I honestly stopped using Chrome a while ago because it wasn't working.
Yeah,
I get like a bunch, like certain things would never, like Gmail would never load or Twitter would never load in Chrome anymore, only on this computer. Yeah. And I like flushed all the DNS caching on my computer. I uninstalled and reinstalled Chrome. Like it does not get fixed, and it's the weirdest thing. Opera works fine. Firefox works fine. I have abandoned Chrome.
Yes.
no idea why. And no, I did not open a bug report because that was way too much work and I wasn't doing it.
And usually Google doesn't work on bugs unless it's in their best interest.
Yeah.
I may be wrong. So at least with their products in open source, they're great, right? But at least with their products, I've noticed that like if it's not in their self-interest, they're probably not going to fix it. So I usually just abandon not opening bugs.
Yeah, exactly. I forget what it was. I did open a bug with them one time and I actually got like response and engagement, and they were like, we can't figure this out. We don't see it. I'm like, here's screenshots, here's logs, like it is all of the evidence of it happening, and like we can't reproduce it. I'm like,
yeah, it works on my computer.
Yeah, it works on my computer. I'm like, that's
yeah.
Anyway, and I was like, what it was actually on my phone, because I have a Pixel, and it was all notifications were silent, even though I like specifically like had like this notification should never be silent. It should bypass my do not disturb. I was missing all kinds of important stuff on my phone. I was and I was an SRE who was on call. I couldn't have my PagerDuty app was not alerted.
Yeah, exactly. What's funny is I use Fedora, and I've been liking using Edge for Microsoft on Fedora. On Linux is actually really good. Once you take out all the Bing stuff, because like they want you to use Bing and it's like all that. Once you get rid of all that, it's actually a nice browser to use on Linux. I've had nothing but good experiences, so that's kind of my takeaway from that.
That's interesting. I've loved Opera for, I don't know, forever. I'll always love Opera. Even when it doesn't work with stuff, I'll open a Firefox with stuff that doesn't specifically work with Opera, and then everything else is in Opera.
You are like the last user of Opera.
They actually have a specific, I forget the name of it. They have a specific version of Opera they've developed just for gamers that has different settings and everything for gamers. So I'm not the last user.
You're like, there are dozens of us.
3 of us at least. So there are at least 3. So that's that. Well, Christian, thank you for the great stream. As you know, I did not do any reading or pre-preparation so that I could follow along and learn just from you. And I did learn, so thank you for that. I think Paul made fun of my face in the comments.
Awesome.
When we were joking about like it's a good face, but not what we wanted. Is a sorry for your mom, and I'm like,
okay, yeah, all right.
We're not friends like this. So no,
exactly.
No. So let's not do that in the comments, guys. I'm pretty thick-skinned, but like, no, let's set good examples for people.
Yeah.
And we will see you back in 2 weeks with Acuity, right?
In Acuity, yeah. So 2 weeks Acuity, that'll be fun.
Just not Daniel. Darn it, Daniel.
Darn it, Daniel. Yeah, I'll give him a hard time. We'll give him a hard time during the stream too. So it's
exactly. He's never living this down.
Yeah. Sweet.
All right. Well then, we learned a lot today, including some things where you're going to have to pick your poison. As I always say, choose your technical debt wisely. And we will see you guys in a couple weeks.
All right. Yeah. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.